I can open tons of these. So I could really kind of end up, with a bunch of windows on the screen. I can also click and drag, or if I'm on a touch device, I can swipe and switch over to the aspects table, and I can switch over to the Zodiacal Releasing module. I love my keyboard shortcuts. That doesn't get displayed over here. But what does get displayed is anything I'm doing with the charts. Hey astrologers, today I would like to walk you through Astrotheoros, start to finish, from creating an account all the way to all the different kind of features and functionality that's in there. In case maybe you use the app and there might be things you didn't know it could do, or you're just checking it out and wondering if it'll work for you. So we'll just see what the app can do as of December 2025 as we roll into the new year. If you're watching this in the future, there's a good chance that there's new functionality that has been added. I'll try to keep the description up to date with any big notable ones. And if I make another video like this in the future, I will try to add a link in here somewhere. And of course, I'll add some chapter markers that you can use to kind of jump to parts that you might be most interested in. So let's dive in. I'm going to start just by literally creating a new account on Astrotheoros. So here we are. I'm using the Safari browser for now. You can use whatever browser you like. I'm on a desktop, obviously, but you can sign up with any device that you'd like. But I'm going to go ahead and just come up to the top here and click sign up. And I'm going to create an email and password. And then when I do that, I will get an email with a code. All right, and I've gone ahead and copied that. I'll paste that in there. And then I can choose a plan. For now, I'll just pick the monthly plan. And that will bring me over to Stripe. Stripe is the partner we use to handle subscriptions and payments, stuff like that. Super safe and used all over the internet. And it just makes it really easy to kind of manage your subscription and stuff like that using Stripe. If you have a promotional code, you can add that here. Otherwise, you can just continue with the checkout. Okay, so I went ahead and entered all my credit card information. I didn't record that, obviously. And as soon as you hit submit, brings you back over here to Astrotheoros, so you can continue setting up your account. You can set your base location. That's just going to be used for the real-time clock, your default transits. Then I'll select the house system. And the email opt-in, I do recommend. We don't send a lot of emails, maybe one a month. It's really kind of the best way to get product updates right now and just kind of know what's new and what has been shipped recently. And with that, I can go ahead and enter the app. And here we go. We have our new account. From settings up here, this little cog, you can always kind of come up here and you can manage your subscription, you can manage your account. So that's key to know. And before we go diving in too far, I'll call out this little guy. If you click here, this will explain how to install the app on your different devices. So Astrotheoros is a progressive web app. And what that means is it can act just like any other app that you might download from an app store. The only difference is that you install Astrotheoros via your web browser rather than through an app store. So if you take a look in here, I try to keep it up to date. It'll tell you how to install the app. So for now, let's check out how to install it on my Mac. I'm in the Safari browser right now. I used to recommend using a Chromium-based browser like Google Chrome, the Brave browser, Internet Explorer, just because they were better at installing progressive web apps. But nowadays, Safari is kind of the nicest on a Mac anyway. It gives you the cleanest sort of shell. So what I'll do is I'll come up to File and I'll say Add to Dock. If you are on a Chromium-based browser, you'll see a little install button in the URL. And so when I do that, you'll see here I get a nice little icon. It says Astrotheoros. I can add it. And there we go. Now it's in my dock. So now from here, we can go ahead and open it up. And we can actually close out of Safari. We don't need that anymore. And we get this nice full installed experience. And let's go ahead and check out how to do this on a phone. So here you can see this is like an iPhone emulator. It's just like an iPhone that's running on my computer. And I'm in the Safari browser again. I'm logged in. One thing you'll notice is that the theme is different. I'm logged into the same account, but I see a light theme over here and a dark theme over here. That's because by default, the theme selected matches your system theme. So on this iPhone emulator, it happens to be in light mode. On my Mac, because I'm a dark mode guy, it happens to be in dark mode. So if I switch this to a specific theme, then they'll match. So let's go ahead and install this so that it's full screen and immersive. if you're on an older version of iOS, you'll see like a share button down here. But on iOS, you kind of get to the share sheet like this, and then you scroll down and you'll see add to home screen. Android's a little different. Check out those instructions or check out the email that gets sent to you on sign up. But yeah, so I'll just go ahead and say add to home screen. Again, that will load up. You'll see an icon and I can add it. And then here it is. Now it's on my home screen. And when I open it up, I get a nice full screen experience, just like a native app. Okay, and with that, let's just go ahead and tour the home screen a little bit. You can see you have your wheel, you have, kind of like what you're looking at. That location we assigned in the setup is set here. So I'm looking at the transits for New York, New York right now. And you can kind of play with it. I can like start messing around with transits. There's some buttons up here. We'll get into more detail on that later. Also down here, you'll see some ways to sort of like shift the views to look at different things. We'll dive more into those as well. You can either use these, or if you're on a touch device, you can swipe. Same thing with declinations. That's always a fun part. And then, of course, up here, you have your charts drawer, which is kind of hard to say, charts drawer. We don't have any charts yet because we haven't added any. We'll do that soon. You can add a chart from here as well. And then you have access to your settings. Now, one more thing before we go diving into more detail here is I want to call out the keyboard shortcuts. I'll kind of bring these up as we go, but on a desktop computer, you can access the keyboard shortcuts menu from settings and get an idea of the keyboard shortcuts that are there. You'll see they're all sort of initialized with the shift key. And as we go, I'll kind of bring up the keyboard shortcuts I'm using. Just keep that in mind. It's a really nice way to kind of flow through the app if you're on a desktop computer. Another thing I'll call out since we're on a desktop computer is that because this is a progressive web app, we can actually open more than one window at a time. And that's really useful if you want to like look at more than one instance of Astrotheoros. So I've got some keyboard shortcuts that help me to move windows around. So I can kind of say, hey, I want this on the left side of the screen. You can see the phone that was sitting behind it, and I can kind of move it around. And if I hit Command N on a Mac, I can create another instance of Astrotheoros. On a Windows, it's a little bit different. I think you have to kind of go down there and right click and say open a new window, but you can do it on Windows as well. And, I can open tons of these. So I could really kind of end up, with a bunch of windows on the screen, and they could all be sort of looking at different, moments in time or whatever you might want to do. So that's just kind of good to know. That can really come in handy when you're looking at maybe two individual charts and you want to see the synastry at the same time and kind of have it all up at once. It's really nice that you're able to do that with Astrotheoros. On an iPad, you can also sort of split the screen and you can open like the app and look at it in the browser. There's different workarounds there. Once you get down to mobile, it's a little tougher to open more than one thing at a time. But all right, so now let's talk about how to kind of make Astrotheoros a little more tailored for you and a little more of your own experience. We're going to go ahead and dive into the settings in more detail. The general settings has a lot of cool stuff in it. We'll go there first. And you can see there's some big sections. There's like design, chart calculations, the wheel, and some features. And so at the top with the design area, this has a lot to do with kind of like theming Astrotheoros. So you can change your theme. I'll actually change to light mode just to wake everybody up. And I've also gotten feedback in the past with my videos that it can be a little tougher to see for some folks. Light mode might be easier there. So I'm going to go ahead and choose light mode. For zodiac shading, there's a few options here. So by default, you kind of get, air signs is blue, water signs is purple. A lot of people prefer the elements alt theme where air signs are more of like a yellow and water signs are blue. But you can play around with these. You can have just the glyphs colored. There's this really nice seasons theme that sort of like shades, spring, summer, fall, and winter. And seasons modality shaded. So they kind of like change modality based on the season. So like spring, you'd have your cardinal fixed mutable. And so that's pretty fun. For now, I'll keep it on Elements Alt since that's pretty popular. And then the placement shading, thanks to some feedback from folks, we added colorized placements. It does make it easier to sort of spot out individual placements, follow them around the zodiac as they're kind of flying around when you're navigating the chart. Below that, you have hand preference. if you are left-handed, my daughter's left-handed, this is pretty sweet because on a tablet or something like that, it's a little easier to reach that dial with your left hand and sort of have a nice tactile experience that works for you. I'm going to keep it on right-handed mode for now. Then you can hide these view toggles at the bottom, which I personally do because I'm really into the keyboard shortcuts. I'll leave them up for now just so we can see what's going on. Below that, you can change your location if you're traveling or something like that. You can change your house system. All these settings work on the fly, by the way. So I can switch to Placidus and it's going to update right on the fly. As soon as I close the settings, it'll save it. I'll keep it on whole sign for now. And let's dive into some wheel settings. We can hide the house numbers. Sometimes that's nice if you want more space for the aspects. You can use a dynamic moon phase. So you can see here, as I start, going through the moon phases, you'll see that little glyph changes as it gets to like a new moon and then comes back around to a full moon. When I was first introducing that, I was sort of like, okay, you can kind of just tell based on the angles, but just seeing it sort of brings the outside in. When I see it like this and I go outside and there's a big full moon, it's fun and I really like it. There's an option to show declination aspects. So you can see these sort of dotted curved lines are declination aspects if you're into declinations. And then you can also optionally show out of bounds placements, which is another declinations topic. You know what, I'll go ahead and leave both on and we can talk about that as we get into declinations a little later. And then there's some additional layers. So you can add things like the Egyptian terms, you can add the decans, and you can have these extra layers around the outside. Maybe I'll leave the decans on for now. Glyph sizing is relatively new. I just added this because a lot of folks wanted these glyphs to be bigger. So you can set them large and they're actually more aligned with how you might be used to seeing it in other apps. If you like a large area for the aspects, you might prefer default. Otherwise, honestly, I might make large the default at some point in the future. Then there's Biwheel truncation. We'll take another look at this when I get a chart added. We can actually add a Biwheel and check it out. But basically it just means when there's a Biwheel, do you want to see all the additional information or do you just want to kind of like truncate what's shown on the chart so that there's more room for the aspect lines? Okay, and then down here, there's some features you can add. So there's a zoom button. You can hide it. It's hidden by default. I always uncheck it because I really like the zoom feature. It helps if you like wear glasses and you don't have them on all the time. When you're on a mobile device, you can zoom. And here's what that looks like. You'll see a little zoom button right there. And then you can tap that and go into this zoom mode where you can kind of pinch and scroll around. And it's really nice on mobile just to be able to kind of get in there and take a look at something in a little more detail. The other one is the copy button. There's a copy button here. I'll break that down in more detail as well. But if you don't want to see it and you want a little cleaner experience, you can opt to hide that. And then there is live sessions, which I'll also get into later. Coming down to chart placements, you can decide which placements are actually visible on the charts. There's different lots that you can include. And what's really nice is this extra toggle on the side that lets you decide if you want aspects drawn to those placements. A lot of times I'll remove those for the lots. You'll see various lots available. You'll also see that we have the major asteroids supported, so you can add those as well. Then we get to the aspect settings. Same sort of deal. You can choose which types of aspects you want to include. You can adjust their orb. You can also just enter a value for the orb if you want. I actually adjust these on the fly quite a bit. I tend to stay with like 3-degree orbs for everything. And that's one thing to know about the settings drawer is all of this stuff can be toggled on the fly. You can open them up, change something real quick. And it's a little more than just like a side thing that you go to once in a while. It's actually like a rich part of the app that you can engage with. Lastly, there's an area here for specialized layers. The only specialized layer available right now is the Zodiacal Releasing module. I'll go ahead and toggle that on, and we can take a look at that in more detail a little later in the video. So now that we've got the chart looking kind of how we want it to look, let's take a look at some other stuff that's available here. We have this area that we can use to obviously like navigate around transits. There's some cool tools up here as well. Like maybe you're on your phone and like some important moment is about to happen. You're like, ooh, I'm going to save the chart for this. There's this save transits button that lets you sort of save and name some transit event like on the fly. So that's pretty fun to know about. There's a button here that you can use to toggle from the dial controls to more manual date controls that are really nice if you want to just jump to some specific date and cast a chart for that real quick. Notice how as I'm changing what date I'm looking at, I have this little button here that tells me how far in the future or the past I am, and I can always hit that to kind of reset to the current moment. There's this little clock here too that lets you know that the real-time chart is running. If I navigate in the future and I'm 14 days in the future, it's no longer like ticking like a clock and showing me updates. But in the real-time mode, this will continue to update every second and redraw the chart. The chart lock is secretly one of my favorite features. Sometimes when you're navigating charts, maybe I'm, roving through time like this, and in a whole sign context, every time the ascendant crosses one of these lines, it's going to make the chart jump around. And when I'm just trying to follow a single placement, like maybe I want to really dial in on Venus and watch Venus go through the chart, that can be a little tough. Like, when does Venus go, right into Aquarius or something like that? And it's messing and moving around on me. Well, I can go ahead and just hit the chart lock, and I can click it there, or I can just hit Shift L and that'll lock the chart. And then I can go ahead and move through time. And even though the ascendant is moving around and jumping signs, it's not going to rotate the chart on me. Of course, you saw that I just isolated Venus with a click. That's also really handy. I can sort of monitor, how does Venus and Mars react? And then I can just sort of start roving through time like this and really watch as they dance around. I'll go ahead and hit Shift Backspace to come back to the moment. And I will click anywhere just to kind of unselect those. When you're on a mobile device and you have something isolated, you'll see a little button for clearing the selection. You can also come up here and select this little drop down arrow and choose what you want to actually lock onto in the chart. So this is really nice if maybe you're doing like sign-based horoscopes and you want to just be able to say, hey, lock onto Aries, lock onto Gemini, rather than sort of messing with the time in order to get it to look the way you want. You can just jump there. But you can also lock onto other things like the sun. And maybe I want to isolate the sun and Mercury, and I can just sort of like watch them move through the zodiac. There's a lot of little things you can learn and experience by doing this. And if I want to do that by my keyboard, I can just hit Shift : sort of right next to the L button for lock. And I can change what I want to lock to. And I can go ahead and toggle off that lock all from the keyboard. Let's go ahead and actually create a chart. So I'm going to hit the plus button. I can also hit Shift N on my keyboard, and I get the chart dialog. So we can go ahead and get started with a name. Let's make a fun chart. We're on YouTube. We'll just go ahead and do Mr. Beast. I don't know Mr. Beast's birth time. I'll go ahead and say time unknown. And he was born in 1998, and that'll be in May and on the 7th. We don't know a time, so I'll go ahead and put 12 o'clock. The time input, by the way, you can use 24-hour time in here, and it will sort of update on the fly to use 24-hour time. And just to note that I'm sort of jumping between these using the tab key. You can click, but you can also just sort of like tab between things. I'll say 12 o'clock p.m. by hitting P, and then we will select a location for him, which is Wichita, Kansas. So I'll select that. This is one nice advantage of Astrotheoros is you can get really detailed with this. So maybe there's like a specific hospital in Wichita, Kansas. I can actually just look up that hospital address using the Google Places API, and that latitude and longitude will be used in the calculation. Makes a very small difference compared to like just using the city, which will have a latitude and longitude somewhere kind of in the middle of the city. But it's just nice to know, and it could come in handy if you have an ascendant like on a very late degree or something like that. You never know, but cool. And it determined the time zone for that location. It determined the UTC offset. You can always manually override that if for some reason you need to. Astrotheoros uses the ACS Atlas. That's where it gets its UTC offset, which is pretty optimized for birth time offsets. And then down here, a lot of times you want to uncheck this so that you can set a current location for transits for this person. So basically where they live now. Mr. Beast lives somewhere in North Carolina. I don't know where, but that's fine. I'll just say North Carolina. And there we go. We can go ahead and save that. And it will go ahead and open that chart up for us. So here's the chart for Mr. Beast at that birth time. Now when I go to the charts drawer, I have the real-time transits. I can switch to that, or I can switch to Mr. Beast. If I want to favorite that, I can hit that star, and when I have more charts, it'll always be on the top. And the keyboard shortcut is Shift-C to open the charts drawer. And you can just start typing right away and hit enter. Really nice to be able to just hop around between charts like that. All right, and then you'll see when you have a chart selected, you have some different options down here. If you need to rectify this chart, you can click here to show the time controls. So you probably want to go down to like a minute or hours, and you can go ahead and like sort of adjust and get an idea of like what birth time might make sense for that individual. If you find something that works better, you can hit the save button and you'll see that that time has actually been updated. So I'll go ahead and save it. And now that that's good, I can hide those rectification controls. I can also always edit a chart from here. You can edit a chart from the charts drawer or delete a chart. And then down here, there's some biwheel options. So I can just add transits and look at a biwheel. You can see here that the biwheel is truncated. That's what that truncated setting was. So basically it gets rid of a little bit of the extra information below in order to save space for the aspect in the center. When a biwheel is active, there's also these little toggles, which are nice. If you want to see just the aspects for Mr. Beast rendered in the middle here, you can do that. A lot of times I'll do that to sort of be like, okay, let me get an idea of what, Saturn is up to in the transits chart. And then I can get a better idea of how it's actually applying to the individual. And there's keyboard shortcuts for this as well. I can do Shift-I for the inner chart, Shift-O for the outer chart, Shift-M for the mixed chart. And Shift-T will add the transits chart on or put it away. Something good to know too is, say I'm navigating some transits and I'm looking at some date a month ago. If I just start changing stuff and I go to the real-time chart, you'll see I'm still looking at that date. Maybe I'm here now and I want to go even further, like another month ahead. I can go back to a chart and that transit will still be applied with that time. That can be kind of helpful as you're jumping around. Maybe I want to look at a specific event in time and see how it's affecting my chart. And then I want to quickly switch to my friend's chart and see how it was affecting them. I can just switch charts and the same transits time will persist between both of them. So I'll go ahead and hit Shift-T, hide that. And then I can obviously add synastry. We don't have any other charts right now. I can see Mr. Beast stacked on top of Mr. Beast, not very useful. And then over here we have some additional biwheel options. Our secondary progressions, which has some like nice little details. You can see that there's progressed years now listed, which is a sly way of saying how old this person is. And as I navigate through the years, you'll see that that kind of changes. I can also add the solar return. And again, I can see solar rotations, aka how old this person is, and navigate through time. And for these additional biwheels, the shortcut key is Shift-B for biwheel, I guess. So I could say that. I can go down to solar return, hit Shift-B again, get rid of it. And those are the biwheel options we have. Let's take a look down here at some of these other charts available. So we have the Declinations chart. You can see there's some keyboard shortcuts for them. I love my keyboard shortcuts. I can also click and drag, or if I'm on a touch device, I can swipe and switch between those. So here's the Declinations view. I can switch over to the aspects table, and I can switch over to the Zodiacal Releasing module. I made a whole video about the Declinations view. This is really cool to me. I really appreciate it from an astronomy perspective. I especially like to do things like I'll go to the real-time chart and then maybe I will like adjust the time to get the sun in the middle. And then I will lock on to the sun and that will center the sun in view. And if I just start navigating through the days or weeks, we can watch how the sun travels along the ecliptic throughout the solar year. And of course, if we watch Mercury, we can watch Mercury sort of dance around the sun, doing his little circles. Up here, you can see a moon that's gone out of bounds. It's escaped the maximum declination of the sun, and some declination aspects will show up. Like here, the sun is exactly contraparallel to Pluto. Definitely play around with it. The biggest thing I get out of it is just maybe I'm outside and it is nighttime and I'm looking at the moon and I can see some star near the moon and I'm wondering which one it is. The declinations chart's really useful for that. If I look at the moon and down and to the left, there's a little non-twinkling star there that's probably a planet. If I look at the declinations chart, probably Jupiter in this case, because it's right there. This middle line here is the equator, so this is geocentric. Yeah, so very fun, very nice to be able to switch to that quickly. The aspect table is really nice to get sort of more analytical with the aspects that are currently happening. If I go back to the Mr. Beast chart and I add transits, you can see we get the aspects between the charts listed in this nice table. And the Zodiacal Releasing module, if you're into Zodiacal Releasing, is really top class. It only shows up if you have a chart selected, but it's really fun. You can see when I rove through time, I get these little progress indicators to tell me how far in that period I'm at. And I can select the different sort of chapters happening in a person's life by navigating around and clicking on things. and I can clear that selection as well. So super cool, a really fun module if you are into Zodiacal Releasing. Okay, let's talk about this copy button real quick. So there's a copy button here. So you do get a copy button for Biwheels. There's a copy button on Zodiacal Releasing levels, and on a single wheel, you can copy the chart data from here. So you just click, and you can see that the chart data was copied to my clipboard. Now, if I open a document, like a Google Doc here, and I just paste, you'll see the data that was actually copied from the chart. So it has information about the person, their birth information, and then it lists all the placements and the aspects that were drawn on the chart. This is really handy when you're going to prepare for a client session. You might want to come in here, especially through some of these aspects, and just take some notes and say, okay, let's talk about this today, whatever it might be, you know. And you could do the same thing with like a transit chart. So I could just copy that data, come back over here, paste that. I have a lot more aspects to look at. I have the root chart placements, which would be the chart for Mr. Beast. Then there is the transits layer on top of that. And we get a list of all the placements and the cross chart aspects that we can go ahead and take some notes on. Another thing this can be useful for is if you are into using AI tools, which believe me, I have a very torn relationship with AI. They have hoovered up like all the intellectual property in the world. It's using way too much energy and water. And while other countries are pouring billions into their auto industry, we're pouring billions into our AI industry, hoping like the AI will make cool cars or something in the future. But that aside, it can be a useful brainstorming tool. It can be used to generate like rough preliminary reports that, you know, you might want to just share with your friends. I made a whole video about this as well, but you can like paste that data in there. And you can sort of like give it your own context as well, which is kind of nice. Like, I'm a traditional astrologer. Please give me some analysis of this chart before my client reading. And the AI does okay at generating an analysis. You obviously have to be careful. It could be totally wrong. But from my experience, it's done pretty good at delivering that kind of magic moment that a lot of people experience when they first get a nice personality report from an astrologer or an astrology tool, or even classic horoscopes. So with great power comes great responsibility, but folks are experimenting with that and getting to know what the capabilities are with AI when it comes to these tools by using this ability to just copy that data super quick. Okay, and we have covered a lot today. The last thing I'll go ahead and cover is live sessions. This is still in beta, which means we're sort of seeing how it works, how people use it, how reliable it is. Just keep that in mind. It doesn't support the Zodiacal Releasing module yet, but I'll go ahead and turn that on. And now over here in this main menu, I have the share button. Again, I made a whole video about this as well. So if you want to go watch it in detail, you can. But essentially, I can kick off a live session. And now that I'm live, I have the ability to copy or share a session link. If you're on mobile, it's better to share, because if you copy and you leave the app, it could disrupt your live session. So I copy the link. And if I visit the browser and I go to that link, it will bring me to the session. And you can see that now I am following along with the session. So here, I'll put the app over here, but it's a lot cleaner. And this is nice for clients. If you're doing classes or something like that, you want to be able to show your screen without showing all of these distracting buttons or the details that might be inside my charts drawer, other clients' birth information and stuff like that. That doesn't get displayed over here. But what does get displayed is anything I'm doing with the charts, anything I'm doing as I rove through time, as I change charts. It really will follow me around the app. It's live and it's pretty fun. And once you're done, you can come down here and you can say stop broadcasting. That will immediately conclude the broadcast for people and end the session. And I think that's it. I think I've covered pretty much everything that's happening in Astrotheoros today. If you use Astrotheoros, hopefully you got to learn something you didn't know about today. If you don't use Astrotheoros, maybe you might consider using it for your practice. Regardless, as I always do in all my communications, I want to encourage anybody to send feedback, share something in the comments, send us an email to info@astrotheoros.com. You can see that at the website at the very bottom. And we are always happy to hear from people. It really does guide the product, it guides the roadmap and what we decide to build next. So with that, thank you so much for watching this. I really appreciate everyone's time. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season here and a wonderful 2026. Thanks again. Take care.